Episode 55. On my own again today, solo. Chris is just been a little bit busy, as have I in the last couple of weeks. Work is a bit out of control at the moment, but we battle on, right? We just get up earlier, and which I've enjoyed doing today. I get up so much earlier, but I do go to bed quite early. But I find I'm a lot more productive in the mornings, particularly for podcasting and writing newsletters and so forth. But I wanted to chat a little bit about structuring your training week, and it's something that I love having, is a structure around my training week. And I spoke last week about consistency, and this probably runs onto that topic a little bit, but it's more about just how to structure your week and how to fit the things in, and to also be a little bit flexible with that structure. I ran track, as if you've listened to me for a little while, for many, many years, and we had a very well structured training week, through the micro and macro cycles as well. And that would typically consist of only 3 days a week running, sometimes 4, depending on what part of the season we were in. But given that we're masters athletes and sprint training is quite taxing on the body, I suppose, and particularly on the nervous system, the central nervous system, you just carry fatigue like heavy weight sessions for days sometimes. But that also fed back into how you should structure your week. Obviously, if you have a very heavy speed focused day, you would need more time between those sessions until the next session. Sometimes, even though we used to run a bit on a Sunday, then run again on a Monday. So we would do hills on a Sunday, and then if we were back at the track on the Monday, we would more than likely do our longer or speed endurance work, particularly for the 400 meter athletes. And then we would go back to speed on the Wednesday. I would always I had a bunch of sprinters as well, and I would try and, just for the fun of it, make sure that everyone got to run the speed sessions together on the Wednesday, let's say. Let's say the sprinters were doing, 6x60s or 2 times 3x60 or 2 times 3 times 100. I would have the 400 and 800 meter guys do that particular first part of the session with them. Then the sprinters may jump out and do 3 times 150 to finish off, and the longer athletes would go over and do 3 times 300 to finish off. But I would always try and incorporate the other guys, so you don't want to be turning up to the track and still training on your own. And it wasn't ideal. Obviously, some sessions, it's not the perfect session for your sprinter or your middle athlete or your sort of speed endurance athlete, but you also need to have some sort of flexibility there, because we were just masters athletes, and even though quite a good bunch of athletes, you still want to be running together as a group. But now that I've moved into more, I'll call it distance-based running, up around that sort of 10 kilometer mark, and that's all I'm focused on at the moment. I'm trying to push out to 15k runs. I haven't been able to get a 15 kilometer run in yet. The furthest I've run is about 12Ks. I will say it's taken me much longer than I anticipated to get to these longer distances. I think one, definitely age is not helping, but two, just not having that, loads of miles in my legs and running on the road is obviously a little bit harder. My legs are still adapting to it. The main thing I find, and if anyone's got any good solutions out there, and drop a note in the comments, particularly on Spotify, is that I am just so sore in the quads. And I don't know if it's because I'm quad dominant running, or if it is just that eccentric, load that you're creating every time you foot strike. But I definitely find if I'm doing a heavy gym session, which I try and get in at least 1 day a week and then a second lighter session, that my legs are taking some time to recover. But I am quite leg heavy after the longer runs for a few days. But getting back to how I'm structuring my week at the moment, I'm getting 4 runs in a week. I'm aiming for a minimum of 30Ks a week. And remembering I'm not trying to run a marathon or a half marathon at the moment. I know I need to crank that mileage up substantially. I'm really just trying to get my legs under me. And I'm still doing a bit of high rocks in the background. And I think I'm going to go down to Melbourne and compete, as they've just opened up a new event. And that is, if you don't know high rocks, it's, 8 stations and 8 1 kilometer runs in between the stations. So it's very much a HIIT type session, but you need a good cardio base, and that's just the thing I'm still trying to build up. So currently my week is structured around 4 runs. I normally have a easy or what I'm calling a easy or recovery run on a Tuesday, and I purely run to feel. I don't worry about time. Normally I settle in somewhere around 5:45 pace. Heart rate wise, it's probably still a little bit too high. And I'll touch on that in a moment, how I can't run within that zone two. And I think zone two has just become, I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I think it's potentially been overdone at the moment. Just my own take on that. I know there's a lot of good science around it, but I think for a lot of people trying to run in zone two is probably very difficult. So on a Tuesday, I have an easy run or a very low RPE run, and sometimes the speed is faster. Sometimes it might be around 5:35, and sometimes that's as slow as 6:05. This is kilometers speed. So, and that would always be, I try and do a minimum of 30 minutes. I'm trying to make that more around the 45-minute mark. So, if we're talking about 6-minute K pace, I might run up to 6Ks or 7Ks, depending on how I feel. And I would like to keep that around there at the moment. That's just my recovery day, because normally I double up that particular day and I'll do a gym session as well. A Thursday, I make my interval day, and I mix that up. I literally have a 6-week interval program, and that would consist of, I really like 800 as an interval distance. I don't do them on the track. I do them around the streets. The closest track's a little bit too far to travel to, which I would really like to go to a couple of days a week or once every couple of weeks if I could, but it's just not feasible at the moment. So I still like running the intervals on the road, and then I have a 90-second walk rest. And my progression there, and as I started, I did longer rest times, so they were probably 2.5 minutes there, down to 90 seconds between 800s, and progressively I'm doing more of those 800s. I think I have run 800s with a 90-second rest is the most I've gone out to. And then I play around with that. Then I drop down to 400s, and that might be somewhere between 6 and 10 400s. Obviously a slightly faster pace because you're running a shorter distance. I would also then shorten the rest down to 60 seconds. And then I'm letting that out. I'll do some 1 kilometer runs. I will take that out eventually to 1.5 Ks, and then boost it up to 2 Ks, trying to hold that 800 meter pace for 2 Ks with a longer rest, maybe somewhere between 2 and 3 minute rest. And then I would do 3 of those. So, basically the structure would look like 3 times 2 Ks, 2 to 3 minutes rest, trying to hold similar to that 8K pace, 800 meter pace. It'll be slightly off that, maybe 15 to 20 seconds per kilometer off that. So there's no perfect formula for this, by the way. And I know there's lots of programs out there. It's very much an individual thing. I'm not saying don't follow a program, but a program that someone's writing for you is just, very generic. It's not specific to you. They're not taking back feedback. That's the one thing about coaching, going back to my track days, being on the track. I could see straight away how the guys were running. I would get this visible feedback off them straight away, and I would know if they're labouring or they're just struggling, or you could just tell their turnover just wasn't there, and I could adjust that session straight away. And there was no perfect session for any athlete. There was certain sessions that definitely would suit different athletes, but that would have to change all the time as well, just to the volume of training we've done and the way athletes are feeling as well. And so you need to have some sort of flexibility in your program. I'm pretty rigid. I do like just a program that I set, and then I like to do that particular program on that particular day. But I'm having to change my view and my tactics a lot around that as well, as I'm getting older and I'm just not recovering like I used to. So, as an example, this week on the Thursday, it's always my interval day. It's my favorite day of the week. I got up and I woke up tired. I didn't get a great sleep. I walked out the door and I ran for a couple of Ks, and my body just didn't warm up. So I just continued to run. I just dropped the intervals for the day. I'm like, okay, I did have 4 or 5 days off the week before, so my body hadn't done a lot of running. And I just said, okay, my body's not going to warm up and run these intervals today. It's basically going to be a bit of a waste of a session. I potentially will get injured because I just felt dehydrated as well. Let's just run this nice, easy 5 or 6 Ks, just enjoy the morning and, live to fight another day. So I will either leave that for an entire week and not run intervals again for another week, or depending how I feel on Sunday, I might do intervals on Sunday. So I've only done 2 easy runs this week. Saturday's my longer run. I'll go out and I'll try and run somewhere between an hour and 30. I'm hoping to build up. It's probably more like an hour and 15 for me at this point. And then depending on how I pull up on the Sunday, I am enjoying doing hills on a Sunday morning. I will pick up that interval session potentially if I feel really good. But if my legs are still heavy after the intervals, I will just go and run hills, given the fact they don't actually stress your body as much and I don't need to find as much speed. Even though I am still trying to run my hills at around that my 5 kilometer pace up those hills, so I'm running somewhere between a minute and 2 minutes at, for me, my target 5K pace is about 4 minutes per kilometer. So I'd be running uphill at about the 4-minute K pace. Sorry, my 5K pace is 20 minutes, so 4-minute K pace. It gets a bit confusing. We start thinking about running kilometers, and I'm sure for you guys out there in miles still as well becomes even a little bit challenging. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on, but that within that training week, I do like the structure, and I like to know that on Tuesdays it's sort of like a mental reprieve day. I go out and have that nice easy run. I just float around the harbour in the morning and just enjoy it. And then on the Thursday, I really look forward to my intervals. I've had a few days off because I've normally done a lot of my running on the weekend, and I do double up some of my sessions in terms of doing gym work as well. And then on the Tuesday, I have an easy day. Then the Thursday, my legs have had a fair bit of recovery. I try and do some of my heavier work early in the week, so they're recovered by the Thursday, so I can actually put in a good interval session. But you've got to have flexibility around that. The other thing I'm trying to do, I'm trying to accumulate more volume. And the volume I'm trying to do is just by either getting on the bike, and that's before my gym sessions, maybe trying to do 20 to 30 minutes on the bike. I'm spending maybe 1 day a week walking on the treadmill, 10 to 12% incline, and just walking at whatever the comfortable pace is. Your heart rate, that's where I am doing that zone 2 work, and on the bike, because I can't get my heart rates into zone 2 when I'm running. It is so slow, it's actually uncomfortable for me. My heart rate just tends to creep up a little bit, and now the weather in Sydney is starting to increase a little bit as well. That's even harder for me. So that absolute zone 2 work and trying to accumulate a bit more volume to build that base, and again, using the triangle analogy, you want the base of the triangle, a little bit like your house, the foundation to be extremely good and extremely wide, and then obviously you build up on top of that. So yeah, walking on the treadmill, as much as I find it as boring as, and someone I interviewed a while ago, that's on Twitter as well, David, he said to me the other day, or he put out on Twitter that he's doing 3-hour walks on the treadmill. Personally, I don't know how he's doing it. I would go batshit crazy walking on the treadmill for that long. I do take an iPad with me and I can flick through some emails. But that 20 to 30 minutes on the treadmill uphill, just to accumulate a little bit more volume in my legs without taxing them, I'm finding really good. I'm also starting to do a little bit more rowing. I did a row session the other day. It's part from my high rocks training as well, of 10 times 500 intervals on the rowing machine with about a minute rest in between. What I do is, for high rocks training, I would actually get off and do some wall balls in between. Obviously that pumps your heart rate up, but if you're just doing the intervals, you can actually keep your heart rate quite low on the rowing machine. So I'm finding doing things like that beneficial as well. So yeah, you need to be a little bit flexible in your training week. Obviously, it's not always going to go to plan. Don't beat yourself up. If you're just starting out, even thinking about intervals, you don't need to. You don't need to worry about interval running at the moment. It's more about just accumulating some miles in your legs and doing those easy runs, maybe a couple of easy runs a week, and then one slightly longer run, and that long run is probably a walk run. If it's on the treadmill, it's on the treadmill, or if it's outdoors. And if you are just trying to accumulate some volume, I would highly recommend the walk-run approach and finding areas that are a little bit hillier and then walking up the hills. That keeps your heart rate slightly elevated, but obviously you get that little bit of a break from running, and then when you get to the top of the hill, let your heart rate just sort of settle down and then just start to run again. So there's lots of ways to skin the cat. There's no perfect method. Don't beat yourself up or get all sort of stuck on this stuff in social media. I think where the zone 2 stuff is just everywhere at the moment. I don't know. There's definitely science around it, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, but you know, I know for me personally, I can't run in zone 2. Am I doing myself a disservice by not being able to do these long runs in zone 2? No, I don't think so. Yes, it's taken me a little bit longer to definitely accumulate that base. I think it's a couple of factors there. One, I haven't actually really put the effort into running, and I'm just progressing. I've been doing a lot of heavy gym training in between. Makes it a little bit harder, and I'm definitely a little bit older. So yeah, don't get too caught up on all the stuff in the social space. It's there's just lots of it out there at the moment. But yeah, just get out, enjoy the run, and have those easy days when you need them. Try and get some longer runs in when you can as well, and mix it up. Get some cross training in. Get on the bike and get on the treadmill. That's it for now. I'm not going to go on too much about that. Just wanted to do a quick little update on just how I'm structuring my own training week. So for me, just to recap, 4 runs per week. Easy, just very relaxed RPE, very low run, and I just cruise around. Even if I walk on that run. If I just feel like walking, I'll just go for a walk as well. 1 interval day, and I think that's more for an intermediate runner. As a beginner, you don't need to be doing intervals. 1 longer run. And again, even on my longer run, if my heart rate starts to really drift up, which has a couple of times when it's been warm, I will just walk. And that walk might only be 500 meters, and my heart rate will come back down. And then I'm doing my Sunday run, and only because I love running hills, I'm throwing hills in. It probably should be another. But if I'm also tired after the Saturday longer run, that will just be a recovery run. So be a little bit smart about that, and don't sort of drive yourself into the ground if your body's not feeling it. Just do that recovery run. All right, that's it for now. Have a great day, and until next time.